Hello everyone, welcome back for the final overview for the 8-week semester of English 1520A8107. This one's going to be posted up a little bit later, guys. I was trying to get the rest of you guys, as many as I could, final draft grade posted up for rhetorical analysis, and then the remainder of those, if anything was outstanding on those other ones, for research. But on those, for the most part, everybody that had the content for rhetorical analysis, summary, outline, and rough draft, and you met the requirements in the discussion board, I'd say on average, the final drafts were at least a point or a few points higher than what the rough draft grade was for the majority of students, unless there was something going on with a ChatGPT situation or completely deviating from the assignment requirements. On average, those are all a little bit higher than they were on the roughs. Now, on the assignment schedule, guys, for these, with the research pieces, I tried to make sure that everybody had at least these two, or this, or all three up before doing this rough draft on here. I know with having to go back and forth with certain students while other students were diligently working and getting things done, it's a little bit disjointed on there, and I apologize for any of those. Just note, I did my best to be consistent with those and try and have as much as I could for everyone involved, including considering the special circumstances for some of the students. And it wasn't special consideration letting students step outside the guidelines of the requirements. It was more along the lines of there being students in class where a number of unique situations came up, so we had to deal with those here over the last 5-6 days. And those are now sorted out. We are in the final stage here of completing all this. And just note that for anybody, if there was a component on here that you didn't have prior to completing the rough draft that I pushed it to this evening, just note that I take that into consideration when placing a grade on something like this. If you only had one of these elements and it really was consequential of something that I was marking there to help you inform you on the rough draft, then I'm not taking additional points away on the rough draft. Remember, rough drafts are submission credit mostly only. I still went through and made comments on a lot of yours, including on the rhetorical ones. And on the rhetorical analysis in the final draft, most of you are already seeing that between your summary, outline, rough draft, and final, as long as you followed the directions, third-person objective, stayed with the framing of devices, not confusing devices with appeal, and following those primary directions, most students have already seen that the final draft down here is higher in terms of the grade than this or both, as long as those main things were addressed. And if someone did a final draft on here before getting my feedback on one of these, which I don't think was the case on anybody for summary outline, everybody should have had that, but I didn't take additional ones away if the errors on there were consequential to the feedback. Now, that means if they're basic requirements that are part of 1520 and basic requirements for the whole term, including the readings and things, I can't give leeway on those, and that's going to be carry over into the research. If I look through these different things and on the draft that comes in today or the final draft that comes in on the 26th, and the errors that are present all still have to do with sentence level issues of grammar, mechanics, style, punctuation, etc., those are things that are the student responsibility to take care of through tutoring. And I do have very few students who have utilized tutoring in this class, despite having several recommendations for YTR2 and YTR3. That's just going to have to be a knock on the chin you take grade-wise because you did not utilize anything additional. And it really is not the purview of a 1520 professor to go through and mark comma splices and run-ons and spelling errors and all these other things. It's just a markdown for not having sentence-level readability. Now, most of you should note that in yours, I did go further than that, and I did mark many of those things in your work, particularly for some of you that I had conversations with, or at least messaging back and forth on these issues. We definitely worked a little bit more on these. I still expect the tutoring recommendations to be adhered to. But in any event, this evening submitting the rough draft on here. If there was a student who submitted rough draft and one or more of these things they did not have back, as I said, I tried to make sure every student had both of these, this, or all three before submitting something in this area for the rough draft. If that's not the case, I'm not taking away further points on the rough draft in the submission unless it has to do with the formatting or the sourcing is incorrect, etc. keeping with that in terms of the sourcing, remember on these with the sources, we went over this many times. One of the things that is still of issue here and needs to be addressed, to say the least, before anyone submits on the 26th. Today is the 24th. It gives until Wednesday at 11:30. Shouldn't say 28, should be 11:30. 11:30 p.m. on Wednesday to submit the final draft. Everyone will have these things back by then for sure, but regardless of that, the sourcing on this, where everyone went through, going through the library page here, and making sure that you knew the requirements for these. Remember, we all had, here's an example, physical health benefits of daily, what do we have? Exercise is something that a number of you guys had as a topic here, or the benefits of daily physical exercise. Daily physical exercise having mental and health benefits. Here's one of the potential search topics there, the wording of it to find results on these. You might do physical health benefits of daily exercise, overall health benefits of daily exercise, or mental health benefits of daily exercise to find all these. But regardless of how you did this, guys, there are a number of students who simply aren't selecting these filters and ending up somewhere besides our databases with these. And on top of that, doing articles and journals were the only things that were approved for these. Sticking with just this type of article will make sure that it is something out of the academic articles out of those journals. If I click here and select for that in my filters, I'm still left with 2100 results. So when I go through these different things, a systematic review of longitudinal studies, when I'm going through these, folks, this is 4th or 5th time touching base on these. If I'm getting a citation from this source that I end up using quotes from to support my ideas in my research, the citation function here, for most of you, most of the sources that end up viable in this area will have the DOI. Most, if not all of them. On the topics that we have for this class, I didn't have anything approved outside of those basic guidelines. So this is something that I am not giving any consideration for in terms of points. Those are issues that needed to be addressed from the time you were starting this assignment, not now. And marking those things as a courtesy in terms of giving more commentary on those and including the correct content on a lot of the drafting and outline stages, I'm finding myself doing more work than some of the students on their research. Okay, so make sure that you guys are double checking those, and if I had comments on those, make sure that you're addressing all of that and making sure that what comes in on the draft, rough and final, is viable sourcing. Peer-reviewed, full text available, online at open access, and having stuff that's in those peer-reviewed journals and articles. I mean, that's it. It's pretty simple to narrow that down. And then to make sure that you have the right content that I can find. That DOI gives me a time stamping, and it makes sure that we're both looking at the file at the same time and place that you accessed it, so there's no change and no possibility of us having some point confused in that area, right? Now, for week 8, we have here the rough draft of this one due this evening. We have the final draft due on Wednesday. The other assignment on here, the cultural analysis impact, I made that the optional extra credit piece. If anybody does this and meets those requirements on there, I will award extra credit on those. I want you to note, if you did something this term with tutoring and you followed recommendations on there, make sure that I get those confirmation forms submitted into this Dropbox. It can be a screen capture of the email, whatever the case may be. Whatever you have in there confirming your completion of a tutoring session or more. And then on here also, if any student finds here at the end of the term they just can't complete for whatever reason, there's been something that's derailed you this semester, I need a request officially into this Dropbox. And remember, folks, messaging up here for any contact, including at the end of the term. It's not going to be an excuse that you sent an email and it wasn't responded to when the requirements for the course dictate that it's instant messaging only. So we have those 3 things due for the final week. Make sure that you note that any of this, again, cultural analysis portion. I kept the overview of that here below your course schedule for the week, but I removed a bunch of the sample ones. I kind of cut it down and left the other instructional links and things up. But if you want the full list of those sample readings about it, I did put those in the Dropbox so that you guys can scroll down and see all of them that were there here. They're all cultural impact pieces. So on those, let me know if you got questions. I look forward to seeing the final work. The majority of students in here, I think, did very well, not only in keeping up with the schedule, but in getting having progress throughout the term. So now make sure that we get those final pieces in. There's no additional video or additional readings for the week. Just make sure that the final drafting includes all the sourcing, the formatting, and meets all the basic requirements. Those of you still slipping into second person, try and get rid of those, and let's get over the final hump here with glowing reviews. All right, it's a pleasure working with you guys. I look forward to seeing the final work. And again, if there's any contact to be had, make sure it's here in instant messaging. And just note, the 26th hits, that's the last day of class. I have to have all final grades in within 48 hours of that to the school, so there can be no changes. So anything else that's left, any ends left untied there, folks, are just going to have to be deductions on this. I can't do anything past that date. All right?